am I'm ready to go. We can talk, but yeah, I want to start by just saying, first and foremost, thank you for being willing to come on and talk. I love, especially when I have different views than another person, because that's when you grow, right? Sharpening
Yeah.
off of another person.
Mhm.
So that's pretty cool. And I think, regardless of how the conversation goes, I think either side of the camp is going to be able to see that the other people do have valid reasons for feeling how they feel. It's not this side is just a bunch of Disney shills, and that side just is quoting YouTube videos, which is sometimes how it feels to me.
Mhm.
But it's important to remember that each person is an individual person, and it shouldn't be an us versus them narrative, because yeah, we can all talk.
Okay.
Um,
Well, I just want to say that I don't exactly share the same sentiment. I think that just because somebody is a person doesn't mean that they get a pass from being a certain way. Personally, I've
True.
gotten a lot of attacks saying that I'm toxic, but to be honest, I believe that a lot of the what do you say the sequel trilogy, as I call them, sequel trilogy stands are very toxic, probably more toxic than the people who do not like the sequel trilogies. Um, just because I get that there are people who are just straight up sexist and misogynist and stuff like that towards the sequel trilogies, but I think that most people are not like that. I think that they dislike them for very valid reasons. And a lot of the toxicity that is uh supposedly in the Star Wars communities, primarily from people who don't like the sequels, is more so projected and not as predominant as people make it out to be. So that's just my stance, to be honest.
Okay.
Because a lot of people who I know don't like the sequels, are not racist, misogynist, or anything like that, right? They just have criticisms about it. So, but I think that I think you're a much nicer person than I am. So you're kind of on this whole like let's live and let live and all be fans of the fandom. And I think that and I think you can agree with this sentiment that we can all be fans but still be critical of
Oh
things,
yeah, absolutely. I
right?
mean, what's funny is, I'm going to be doing a podcast episode on Rise of Skywalker this upcoming Wednesday. That's my least favorite. And I think,
Mm,
without criticism, things don't get better. I just think that, the way you go about criticizing and understanding the ramifications of your actions, you can send things in two different ways. And yeah, either side can very well be toxic, but sometimes, uh, you see it as, sometimes toxicity is more about a reaction to toxicity. But I mean, we'll get into it.
okay.
But I'd like to start, if you can kind of introduce yourself, and where people can find you and stuff, because I have everyone here on my stream, and if you Epic
Sure.
Games will stop by.
I am Blackbird. This is primarily a thing that started on TikTok. So if you follow us on TikTok, uh, or maybe you don't know what's been going on. I primarily made a lot of political videos and political debate videos, supporting and talking about socioeconomic issues, things like Black Lives Matter, etc., against the cult of Trump for a long time. I made one video responding to a popular TikToker by the name of Moose, and oh my god, the hate flooded in for me, and that's kind of how me and Chaco got into this. Although Chaco didn't send any hate, he just said, "Hey, look, you're wrong, and we should talk about it," because we were having some discussions in the comments, and that's how we're here. If you want to follow me on Twitch, it is Blackbird underscore 451. My TikTok is Blackbird 451.
Yes, and so yeah, that's exactly why we're here. For anyone on Blackbird's stream, I'm Darth Choco on TikTok. Also, Darth Chocolate on YouTube. I have a Twitch. I haven't been streaming lately, but yeah, mostly just talk Star Wars stuff and have fun trying to dig in and examine it. Uh, Real quick, Blackbird, can I get your top three Star Wars films, and kind of how you got into Star Wars?
My top three Star Wars films are The Empire Strikes Back, A New Hope, and The Force Awakens. I got into Star Wars just watching it as a kid on TV. Every time it would come on, mind you, I grew up very poor, so I grew up watching Star Wars on like Channel 9 and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, every time Star Wars: New Hope would come on, or any of the other movies would come on, The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, I would watch those. And I don't know, I've always been a Star Wars fan since I was a kid, and that's how I got in it. As I got older, I got a little more into the expanded media, some of the books that are not directly novels, but just have a lot of information in them, like the Old Republic books and
Yeah,
explaining, like
love Darth Bane
lightsaber.
so much, and
Yeah, you know what I mean. Oh God, Bane. Yeah. So yeah, stuff like that. That's how I got into Star Wars. What about you?
yeah. So for
Top three
me,
movies.
top three. Uh, just last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago now, but The Last Jedi actually overtook Empire as being my favorite on a watch. But I go The Last Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, and then Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
Which is odd because my favorite era is the prequels, and none of the prequels are
Really?
in my top three.
Oh my God.
But it's because I feel like the prequel era was heavily sweetened by the Clone Wars, and that's why I love it so much.
Okay. I can understand that. As far as just the movies go, um when I was younger and I watched all those movies, I loved them, but as I got older and I revisited them, I I can't I can't, except Return of the Ship. Return of the Ship is still great, but The Phantom Menace is boring. I can sit through the Attack of the Clones, but The Phantom Menace, I can't do it. I can't do it. I really wish they just did like Darth Jar Jar and we would have been good to go.
Same, that would have been amazing. But I still feel like a kid in the candy store watching the pod race scene. I know a lot of people say it's too long, but like,
No, I enjoy it. I enjoy it. It's one of the highlights of the movie.
and then the music hits on the last lap, and like, oh, and I'm just like fist pumping in my chair. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But all right, so we can jump into it. And the primary of the discussion is whether or not Ray is a Mary Sue. And as Blackbird and I discussed a little bit earlier, we're going to be really focusing on the character in the context of the three films. Obviously, there's expanded media, comics, and things like that. However, that shouldn't be necessary in order to get your point across about the character. So
Hmm.
we're gonna stay away from those, but we are gonna use the entirety of the Star Wars film universe in order to establish precedent or information.
Yep. Sounds good to me.
Whew. All right, cool. So I was hoping that we could start with what I saw as the easiest one is in the very first reply, the very first video that you sent as a reply to Moose. You mentioned that Ray could magically fix the Millennium Falcon better than Han Solo.
Correct.
Um,
I literally just posted a video about this.
oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, I did. I did. Yes.
So, I mean, I can't see this as. Well, actually, let's take a step backward. Can you kind of clarify what you are calling a Mary Sue? Because I've heard different people use different definitions. You did give one in your first video, but I want to make sure that that's what we're working on.
Yes. Sorry, I had to turn my light on. Yeah, absolutely, sure. Because I was actually going to go back and talk about that because I think we should define what we believe is a Mary Sue. I'm going less with obviously the classical definition of the actual Mary Sue character from the Star Wars, a Trekkies of Star Wars. I just made a huge blunder calling Star Trek Star Wars. I lost my nerd card, guys. That's it. Debate over. Damn, took Dolph Choco only 60 seconds to take. Okay, no. The Star Trek, A Trekkie's Tale, Mary Sue. Obviously, if people don't know, the original character by the name of Mary Sue was a character who was basically absolutely perfect, right? Everybody loved her. And she had no flaws or weaknesses. She could do things that other veterans of Starfleet could do, but better than them. Okay. So I feel like part of that does fall into Rey's character, that she can do things better than other people who have been established in the canon can do. And on top of that, my to further my definition of Mary Sue, it's more so also that it's not just a character being void of flaws or weaknesses. It's a character who, instead of conforming to the established rules of the universe and the plot, they constantly do things that bend the universe or the plot that conforms to them. You get what I mean? It's like characters are established based on the rules of the universe, and I feel like the rules of the universe do the opposite with Rey. So it's like they bend to her, and every choice that she makes is beneficial to her or has either a better outcome or a positive outcome. And also, I feel like by her mere presence, the characters around her become worse or stupider or less skilled. So that is how I'm defining a Mary Sue. And I don't feel like that's too much of a far cry off of just, oh, she's not a perfect character. I never said she's a perfect character, but I feel like the way she is written overtakes or contradicts the set rules of the universe, and also from a storytelling standpoint, from a writing standpoint. I feel like she is just things happen because because she's Rey, and for no other reason than because she is the main character.
Okay. And
if you're cool with that, then
no. I'm definitely cool with that definition. And just out of curiosity, how do you feel about Rey in general?
I love Rey. Rey's one of my favorite characters. I would say she's probably in one of my top 3 favorite characters in Star Wars. I don't know if you saw my other video against Jesus Christ, Parker. No, not Parker. Some other guy. I forget. It's Kareem JPG, and he was assuming that I hate Rey. And my phone's background is Rey. My lock screen and my main screen is Rey. I play Rey mostly in Battlefront. She's my favorite character to play. I love Rey. I do. I like Rey. I just have my criticisms about her, but I don't know. I love her. Maybe I'm a simp. Who knows, right? Corrupt 24. He's a close friend of mine. We game and stuff all the time. We know each other in real life, and he can affirm that I'm a Rey simp, despite all the shit that I talk about her.
No, that's totally cool, and that's why I ask, right? Because you know what happens when you assume, and I try not to assume anyone's stance. Personally, I actually get annoyed when I get called a sequel defender, because I don't consider myself to be. I just try to share facts, and it doesn't matter what, doesn't matter which film or anything I'm talking about. And I actually made a video recently where I showed that I actually talk about the sequels the least. But of course, it's TikTok, meaning if you interact with these types of posts, those are the ones that you're going to see. So, it is what it is. But, okay. Now, in regards to Rey being able to fix the Millennium Falcon better than Han can, there's not... So the problem with, the Mary Sue character that we're kind of basing everything off of, and as well as your definition, and something I do need some clarification on, is because of the story and because of Rey's background and because of the narrative, her ability to fix the Millennium Falcon is well established and not anything above or beyond or surprising in the context of the film. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I kind of get lost with it. I mean,
okay,
we see her, first, taking pieces off of the big Star Destroyer, right? Mm-hmm. We know that she's a scavenger, but she's not pulling scrap metal that's getting weighed and she's getting paid off of how much. Mm-hmm. She's selecting specific parts, and we see her going back and clean the part, and then when she sells it, she gets less portions, which means that she knew what the part was, she knows the value of the part, and was shocked at, that kind of leads into her mechanical skills or understanding how these things work. Again, when she's running to the Millennium Falcon, or when they're running to the quad jumper, and she's like, oh, we're not going to take that one because it's garbage. Obviously it was covered up, but she knew what was underneath it.
Yep.
Again, when Han Solo first, walks onto the Falcon, he says, some moof milker installed the compressor on the hyperdrive, And she's like, yeah, I disagree with that because it puts too much pressure on the hyperdrive. And they finish each other's sentence. It's a little cute moment or whatever. But in the context of that, that also says that she, knows what the piece is, knows what it does, knows its ramifications, which makes sense considering her job, and that's all she's been doing for, the past decade, over a decade.
Okay. Okay.
So I can't see how that is out of the blue or surprising or even impressive in any way, especially considering, they go to take off. The Falcon doesn't start. She has to remind Han, the compressor, right?
Mm.
So it's obviously something that is not in the front of his mind. Why? Because he didn't install it. It was installed under Unkar Plut that Rey was very aware of. And by the same token, when they're having issues in hyperspace, like it wouldn't have made sense to me if they try to restart it and he forgets again about it. That wouldn't make sense. But seeing that this issue was in a separate context of now we are seeing the after effects of it in hyperspace, her bypassing it seems common. It seems very in character and without bending or breaking any of the rules of the universe.
Okay. Now, I'm going to challenge your thinking here. Okay. And I want you to try to be a little open-minded about what I have to say. Now, I feel like everything you just said forwards my argument about why she's a Mary Sue, because first and foremost, there's a lot of people who I don't know if they watched the same movie that I did, but people saying that Han didn't know where the compressor was. We both know that's not true, right? It's sitting on the front panels. So first and foremost, Han walks into his ship. He walks into the cockpit and almost immediately notices, he has like a little reminiscing moment, and then he immediately notices that there is a compressor on the hyperdrive. Okay. So I feel like there's so much of a double standard to say that, oh, Rey's a scavenger, right? She knew where the compressor was. Okay. So did Han. He knew where the compressor was. Oh, Rey's a mechanic. Okay, so she would know how to bypass the compressor. But and then you're saying that she had like a decade or so of experience. I'm not. How old is Rey? In the she got dropped off when she was like 5, and then she's like what, 19, 20?
19, yeah.
She's 19, right? So she had about. We can't just say that she was an expert from the moment she landed on Jakku, but we'll give her at least a decade of like mechanical and technical experience, right? If and that's being generous that she started early doing these things. But you mean to tell me that Rey, a 19-year-old, has more experience on the Millennium Falcon than Han Solo, the owner of the Millennium Falcon? It doesn't matter how long it was out of his hands. He knows immediately what a compressor is. He knows what it does. He knows how it functions. I'm pretty sure he would know how to install and uninstall one, and that he would know how to bypass one. Because if there was ever a compressor on his ship, wouldn't he know, okay, this is a problem, I should really know how to fix this so he doesn't get blown into hyperspace? You get what I mean? Like, it makes no sense. It seems like in the argument to validate Rey's claim of what she can do, they forget that she's up against characters who have been pre-established to be better and know more than what she does. So to say that she knows more about this than Han Solo, to me, is ridiculous, right? And that, oh, it's not at the front of his mind. Why? The guy is a scoundrel, right? He's that kind of character he thinks fast, right? He gets out of situations by being a fast talker, by having a quick mind. That's Han Solo's thing. But in the presence of Rey, he drops 100 IQ points. Like, she even has to, like, he knows there's a compressor. And then when he goes to go into hyperspace, when they're in the when the Rathar is on top of the ship, she has to point out and remind him that the compressor is there, despite the fact that he pointed it out immediately. He knows it's there, but because Rey is there, now Han is suddenly stupid. You get what I mean? And that's the Mary Sue effect, is that characters around her become dumber simply because of her presence. More so, I'm sorry. The writing, right? Also, the plot bends to her will. Think about this, right? What happens to Han's actual co-pilot, Chewie? He gets shot, and now he can't fly, right? So now Rey has to step in and fly, which impresses Han Solo so much that he gives her a job. if Luke Skywalker had the same storyline as Rey did, the same like when he went on the Millennium Falcon, he would have known how to fly it. Chewie would have got shot on the Death Star, and then something would have been wrong with Han Solo's ship. Luke would have fixed it and told him more about his own ship than Han Solo knew while co-piloting it. To me, that it doesn't make sense, right? So to validate Rey's skills shouldn't be also to invalidate Han's, because Han should have way more knowledge and skill than she, because there's evidence that he notices it, he knows what it does. He says it puts strain on a hyperdrive because they finish each other's sentences. But yet, as soon as he sits in that cockpit next to her, oh, what's going on? I don't know. Mary Sue effect. And so it gives Rey opportunities to just look better than what she is and make the other characters look dumber. And they need her assistance. Because you mean to tell me that if Rey wasn't there, the legendary Han Solo and Chewbacca would have gotten blown into hyperspace because they didn't know how to fix that issue?
I mean, no one's saying that at all. No one's saying that he wouldn't have been able to fix it or able to figure it out in time. But again, I don't see it as being unreasonable for that to not be top of mind for him, especially having just had his co-pilot shot and just had escaping from 2 separate death gangs and Rathtars. I can see him hopping into the Falcon and having old habits take over. I mean, I've accidentally drove into a previous place that I've lived before. You know what I mean? Okay. I don't see that as him being dumb.
It's kind of anecdotal, isn't it? Though, right? Like it's anecdotal to say that because like they all weren't in a stressful situation, because they were. And I'm pretty sure that Han Solo has more experience with stressful situations than Rey does. Decades more of experience. So for him to hop into that and literally, this is his thing. He's a scoundrel. Scoundrel characters think fast. They figure things out. It's how to get out of tight situations. But now all of a sudden he's flustered. That I don't think that's a valid argument. You know what I mean? Like,
but he wasn't flustered on the ship, though. I mean, obviously something was wrong.
That's what you just said, though. Like he's it's not at the forefront of his mind because Chewie shot and this stuff. But like, okay, Rey's in a stressful situation too, right? Her Finn almost just died. The Rathars are coming for all of them. You get what I mean? She has the pressure of being the co-pilot of the Millennium Falcon. So it's like she's under pressure as well. So I feel like that anecdotal argument doesn't make sense for what actually happens. What actually happens is that Rey makes Han Solo look stupid by her mere presence. And I feel like the evidence that they use to build up that he knows what this compressor is, and obviously he knows what it is, he knows how it functions, he knows the damage it would have to the hyperdrive, and on 2 separate occasions, he looks dumb. The first one is when he's starting up the ship and it starts to go down, and she has to remind him that the compressor is there, despite the fact that he just said it was there. And the second time is when she bypasses it, and she didn't remove something that Han didn't know was there. She pulls out a piece and just says, I bypassed the compressor. It's not like that piece that she pulled out was something that Han did not know was there. But with all of his quick thinking and all of his experience, decades more experience, mind you, decades more. This is a huge jump here. And this is the same thing that goes into Ren and Rey, right? But somebody with decades more of experience, one of the main top 3 characters in Star Wars, is now an idiot. Because Rey exists around him. That to me is a Mary Sue moment. Well, it makes her look better than what she is, and it makes the other characters, pre-established intelligent characters, look stupid.
To say he looks like an idiot, I believe is an over-exaggeration, and there's no reason to believe that he would not have figured out what was happening.
But that didn't happen.
However,
but that didn't happen.
I understand that.
However, you get what I mean? So like we can talk about hypotheticals.
Co-pilot duties. That would still fall under her, and she was able to figure it out because 100% of her interaction with the ship has been post this thing being installed. So I fail to see how your argument is her being unreasonably good or unreasonably skilled. Or
it's not. No. I don't think she's unreasonably skilled. I think that she is comparatively just made to look better than other characters. I'm not invalidating her skills. She and Han both established they knew what the compressor was and what it does, how it functions. I'm not invalidating her skill to be able to fix it. I'm talking about how the plot uh, evolves around her to make her seem better and to make other pre-established characters who should be much smarter and much more savvy than her look worse. Han literally has a dumbstruck look on his face. He's like, huh. First time and the second time when she's like compressor, and he's like, oh, really? The compressor? Totally forgot about the thing I just talked about a couple seconds ago, right? Well, a couple minutes ago, I'll say that. But like, I'm not invalidating her skills. I'm saying that her skills are over invalidated over other characters merely because of her existing around them. And I don't know how you can deny that, because to say that Rey should be able to do this and Han shouldn't or didn't, let's not talk about should or shouldn't. What actually happened and what did not happen?
Yeah.
What
So
happened
what
was that
happened
Rey fixed
is...
it, Han looked stupid, just heard me in presence, Mary's two moment.
So what actually happened is Rey, being the co-pilot, managed her co-pilot duties while Han was piloting the ship.
So if Han, so your argument basically, to be clear, if Han did not have a co-pilot, let's say Han was the only one stuck in a situation, you mean to tell me that he wouldn't have been able to fix this because Rey wasn't around?
I fully believe he would have been able to fix it. Although we do have to, we can't discount the fact that half of the plot of Empire Strikes Back is Han not being the best at fixing his own ship. Or not.
Yeah, no. But that was 30 years ago. That was 30 years ago, right? You mean to tell me over the course of all these decades, he hasn't gotten better at fixing the Falcon? He immediately notices what the compressor is. Immediately, like, you get what I mean? Like, and then when I just asked you, do you think Han would have been able to fix it? You said yes.
I do.
Why didn't he then?
Why didn't he fix the thing that was right next to the co-pilot station that was being manned by Rey?
It's actually closer to him, to be honest. So when she bypasses the compressor, that's different. He's in hyperspace. I don't think he needs to drive the ship in hyperspace manually. He could have gotten up and done it himself. And like, I get that. And first and foremost, the only reason why she got up and went over there was because there was an electrical overload. He says electrical overload, and she's like, I can fix that. And then while she's fixing the electrical overload, she's like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to just pull this piece and bypass the compressor. So, like, he was telling her, hey, go fix this one thing. And then she's like, oh, you know what? The plot is going to bend around me, and I'm actually going to fix the main issue that needs to be fixed. Because it's right here where this electrical overload is. You get what I mean?
Again, it just sounds like she was doing her co-pilot duties. Yeah, there was pressure being put in hyperspace. She knows that it's because of the compressor. Yeah, I see nothing. I don't see this making Han look bad at all. I don't see this as the plot bending around her any. And also, to be fair, in Star Wars, the plot does in some ways bend to the primary characters, and that's part of their connection to the Force. It's literally what all Force sensitives do. So definitely doesn't seem out of line, especially in the universe of Star Wars. So she's the co-pilot. She's doing co-pilot things. He's telling her to do things, and she did a thing that she was very well aware of, and the plot has heavily established her being capable of doing. You can't tell me that he's an idiot just because he had a look on his face.
No. I'm not saying that Han Solo's an idiot. I'm saying that Rey's mere presence makes him look like an idiot. That's the difference. That her presence makes everybody else, these pre-established top three characters, Luke, Leia, Han, make them not look good at their jobs, and it boosts her into a position that is higher than she would normally be in. A perfect example is simply Chewie getting shot, right? A beloved character getting shot and being taken out of commission for the benefit of making Rey look good and impressing Han Solo. To me, that's Mary Sue type stuff right there. You get what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, the pro co-pilot is down. I got this. Don't worry. I can do everything because I can do everything as soon as the plot needs me to. We need a pilot. I can pilot. We need a mechanic. I'm a mechanic. We need a Jedi. I'm a Jedi. You get what I mean? I know you're probably not going to agree with me, and it doesn't seem like we're gonna come to a common ground here. I feel like you've made your points and I've made my points, and we're not going to agree. But I do stand by how I feel she's written. And as a fan watching this, as somebody who uh loved all the movies before this, I saw this from a position as she like instead of actually having the characters do the things that they can do, they are sidestepped so that Ray can do them in their stead. And I get that she's the main character, and sometimes that's fine, but it again, it's Mary Sue stuff. Like she
Now, I mean, I do have to say, it's one thing to disagree with the writing, but yeah, like you said, Ray is the main character, and we're learning about these new main characters in the context by the juxtaposition between them and the older characters. So you can say that Han, yeah, should have been able to do it, and once again, I fully believe that he could have, and you know, but once again, he in no way ends up looking. I still can't get with you on him looking dumb or him acting out of character for Han at all in this point. But I do understand what you're saying. I just don't see how that makes her any sort of a Mary Sue, or how it makes her out of line or out of character again with the Star Wars universe, with how we know the Force works.
Oh no, she's in character. She's in Mary Sue character. She stays in character. I'm giving you shit. I'm giving you shit. No, like, I'm just giving you shit. No. Yeah. Okay. There's more. I feel like we're not going to agree on this. I just believe that you have your stance, and that's fine. I have my stance. That's fine. Not everybody has to agree with us. Either way, they can disagree or agree. That's fine. I don't think either of us are going to bend on this particular point here.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm cool with that.
All right, so let's talk about the next obvious point, which is Rey's ability to fly, to pilot a ship.
Okay, let's talk about piloting skills now.
Again, this is something that is established, especially in the same exact way that we've established the ability for any of the other protagonists throughout Star Wars to fly. So her ability to fly, I don't see as any sort of the plot warping around her in any way that doesn't make sense in context to the Force. If say you are training to be a pod racer your entire life, and then you get beat by a 9-year-old kid from a species that's incapable of of doing the thing, I believe that is a far larger example of a plot bending to a character. Now, I'm not saying that it was okay in Anakin's sense, but I'm setting that I'm using that to set a precedent. Now, Rey flying, obviously she says...
I can debate that argument too, which I'm going to, but carry on. Sure.
So, Rey lets us know that she is a pilot, right? She outright tells us that she's a pilot. Again, in the same vein as her with the Millennium Falcon, she's worked on, in, and around ships her entire life, has shown that she understands them, has spent more years working with them than any of our other protagonists in the in their first film. And then by comparing them, like if we look at Rey's actual flight, now she does say, I've flown ships before, but I've never left the planet, right? So we know that she's a terrestrial pilot, and has experience with that. Now, there's also a thing for home field advantage, right? She flies it on a planet that she knows well. She flies it to a Star Destroyer that she knows well. There really isn't any special maneuvering inside of the Star Destroyer, not anything crazy. In fact, if you compare her flight of the Millennium Falcon to any other pilot we've ever seen fly it, she's bar none the worst pilot, right? We saw Chewie fly through the crystalline structure of a planet on Crate. We saw Lando fly through the second Death Star, which was far more perilous and far longer. And it took a lot more skill. We saw Han pilot it during the Kessel Ren, as well as through an asteroid field while being chased by Star Destroyers and TIE fighters and all this stuff. Yeah. By the way, that soundtrack, that scene is my absolute favorite thing.
Quick question. How do you feel about Solo, the movie?
Solo is Underrated film. It's a great film to put on, and when if you're like folding clothes or you're
Mm.
chilling or whatever, it's just a different type of film. It's like it's a
I never
sandwich.
understood the hate of Solo. I watched it and I'm like, this is a good Star Wars movie. Like this is Star Wars. Like it's not, it doesn't always have to be about Jedi. Like to me, I'm like Solo, I'm like, this is Star Wars right here. Like I thought it was good. I just wanted your opinion on that.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah,
okay.
absolutely. No, no. So my big opinion on it is that it's a sandwich. I love sandwiches. Everyone loves sandwiches. Empire Strikes Back is a steak,
Okay.
and Solo is a sandwich. Sometimes you want steak. You're gonna spend time. You're gonna, you know, different
Yeah.
situations.
Yeah. So back to your point. Back to your point.
But yeah, I mean, if we compare her to the other people that we've seen pilot the Millennium Falcon, she's far and away the worst pilot of the Millennium Falcon, or at least has the worst feats in the ship. If we compare her to our other protagonists, she's still the worst pilot, right? I mean,
Okay.
Luke's piloting in A New Hope is far more impressive, right? Luke doesn't have home field advantages. He's flying it through this perilous trench. It's obviously it's lined with gun turrets. They actually make a big point of, oh, the turrets have stopped, and that's whenever Vader is there and coming behind you. Which is even more scary. And Vader comes in and wrecks the entire squad.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, her piloting was it's a lower feat than that. It's a lower feat than Anakin's ability to pod race, and it's also a lower feat than him destroying the Trade Federation ship. I know
Yeah.
that he was
Which
an
people shit on,
idiot.
by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, he's an idiot at that point in time, but I mean, you can't argue with what happened. So
Absolutely, absolutely. But I can explain it though. I definitely can explain it. Okay. All right. So let me try to get to some of your points here. First I'm going to talk about the Anakin thing because I feel like that's one of the easiest things to debunk, right?
okay,
Because while the whole Mary Sueism, like saying that anything that Rey did can be compared to what Anakin did with the pod race or what Luke did with the attack on the Death Star, I to me doesn't add up and they don't compare. Um, Anakin Skywalker, right? But what Anakin Skywalker has differently than Rey is that Rey, in the Force Awakens, this is our first time seeing her.
hmm
It's the first time of her doing anything that she does, right? So when she does these things, kind of outside of the scope of the normal hero's journey, usually, or things that she has plot elements within the hero's journey as well. But I still
and
feel
we
like a
also
lot of the
can't
rules bend to
use the
her.
heroes. We can't use adherence to the hero's journey because that's just a storytelling device. It's not required for stories. It's
Of
the
course,
metric
yes,
of good storytelling. So
yeah, yeah. But Ray is it's the first time just of us seeing her do these things, right? Anakin Skywalker is a pre-established character. We know that Anakin Skywalker becomes Darth Vader. We know that Anakin Skywalker becomes a good Jedi. We know that Anakin Skywalker is a good pilot because Obi-Wan says it. Your father was one of the best starfighters in the galaxy, right? So we know he's a good pilot. Obviously, he's not a starfighter when he's a 9-year-old child. So what is going to be the precedence that they set up here? Pod racing, right? So we know that he's exceptionally good at it, and we know that he's powerful in the Force, which is how he wins the pod race in the first place. And
mhm.
he doesn't know this, and he's lost all his other pod races because he didn't have Qui-Gon Jinn's guidance. The difference between Rey and everybody else is that for at least in the first movie, she doesn't have a mentor.
I mean,
She
how
just
how did
does
Qui
everything
Gon
on her own.
guide him
Tells
in
him
pod
to
racing?
trust the Force. He tells him about the Force. He tells him about the Jedi, right? He tells him to trust his instincts. These are things that Anakin, well, obviously you can't just say like, oh, anybody knows how to trust their instincts. No, but him telling about the Force and that he's the midichlorians and Anakin wondering about that is an established story element. Like it doesn't have to be so extraordinary. Like he doesn't need to sit down with Anakin and give him like a 8-hour crash course and have lessons with him for it to be established in writing. And I think that this is what the issue is too, because people say that, oh, like Luke didn't have this much experience, like bullseyeing womp rats isn't the same as fighting the Death Star. That's not the point. It's not the point if it's the same. This is how heroes start off. They start off as being lesser, and then you see them progress, but their feats usually are at least established in some way. There is some precedence. It doesn't have to be an expert lesson, but Qui-Gon mentoring Anakin, telling him about the Force, telling him to trust his instincts is what guides him through that pod race, on top of the fact that we know Anakin is extraordinary. So the things that he does in that movie are to set him up as being extraordinary. You get what I mean? So you can't call it a Mary Sue moment because the writing has already established him as a character who is extraordinary. So we have a precedence for Anakin Skywalker. We don't have a precedence for Rey.
Okay, so establishing the character. So you're saying in order for Rey to be considered not a Mary Sue, we would have to start by having another movie that shows her as a full-grown adult. And
no.
I'm saying no. Okay?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the comparative arguments don't add up. So to compare Anakin to Rey by saying that, oh, his feats are the same as hers or similar, or their Mary Sue moments is not true, because we have a precedence that this character is already extraordinary, or he will be extraordinary. So in our minds,
argument is saying that Anakin gets a pass because we know Vader
gets a pass on what? On doing extraordinary things?
Yeah.
Yes, because we have a pre-established movies and stories that we know what his skills are and what they will be, and this is the beginning of him testing those skills. So with Rey, it's kind of just like, hey, I'm here, I can do things because the plot needs me to, right? Like,
but I mean that's still, the comparative argument still remains, because Anakin only could do it because the plot needed him to, and I mean that's how stories are written. I still don't see a compelling argument to why it's not the same. You know, he didn't win because of Qui-Gon's guidance, and this. And this
you don't think that was a factor? That's really disingenuous. You don't think that Qui-Gon Jinn's guidance wasn't a factor in him winning that pod race?
So the only pod race specific advice is Qui-Gon when he sets him in it, and it's just like, hey, trust your instincts.
Why is that not enough to give him just a little bit of that force boost that he has to win this pod race, right, against other people? And of course, I know that the story is about Anakin Skywalker, right? So he should win the pod race, because that's how. If he could lose, of course, right, subvert expectations, but him winning is again, it's part of the movie, it's part of the writing. It's showing that he is extraordinary, that he will become extraordinary. If he loses, then it's like, well, I guess Anakin Skywalker isn't extraordinary, because we've established that he's extraordinary. And so everything that is written to show that is to show that he is extraordinary and will become more extraordinary. So yes, he does get a pass. Because Rey just starts off, and not only is she. Here's the thing, I do not mind. I think this is the misconception here. I just realized what the misconception is. I do not mind that Rey is extraordinary. I'm perfectly fine with Rey being extraordinary. The issue is her being more extraordinary than everybody else.
And that's exactly why I pointed out that she's the worst pilot.
Anakin Skywalker isn't more extraordinary than everybody else. He gets his ass whipped multiple times. Right, but Rey,
and that's kind of why we're framing this as, you know, going by the different aspects, specifically talking about her flight right now. So talking about Anakin losing in fights or things like that isn't going to be relevant to this part, but we'll definitely.
So I'll get to that. So I just wanted to talk about the Anakin thing because you did bring it up. Okay. All right, and now you talked about her being able to fly the Millennium Falcon, and that she has the worst feat technically compared to everybody else.
Yeah, she's the worst of the three protagonists as far as flying, and she's the worst pilot of the Millennium Falcon of everyone we've seen fly it, because of her life. She has the most experience with ships and has the most reason to be capable, but is still the worst.
Okay. So that still doesn't prevent her from going from barely being able to take off to then flying it against two trained fighter pilots, right? And coming out on top in that situation, right? So we have fighter pilots who have been flying for probably decades, right?
I mean, we don't know how long,
but it's longer than Rey. most likely flying their particular specialty of ships, TIE fighters, right? Um, they have learned how to fly TIE fighters expertly, right? You can even see this because obviously not or all stormtroopers are fighter pilots, right? Finn needs a pilot to get off of the ship because he doesn't know how to fly one, right? So it's not like everybody has flight experience, right? Only specific people do. And I don't think that it's just an easy thing to be able to do for everybody. Because if it was, then Finn would have been able to just get off of to escape the First Order. But he needed Poe to be able to do that.
You're not looking at her having trouble taking off as an adjustment period of her getting to know the ship?
No. If anything, that forwards my argument. She goes from not being able to fly it to expertly flying it in 60 seconds against trained fighter pilots. 2 of them, mind you, right? And let's talk about home field advantage. Does everybody who has home field advantage win in a starfight? Because last I checked, most of the time that TIE fighters are going against anybody, they probably don't always have home field advantage. They probably are fighting on planets that the Empire is sending them to, which are the home planets of the people they're going to. Right?
Yes, and that's why they just use overwhelming force and defeat them by numbers. It's not really a piloting skill thing. But if you're chasing me and we hop in our cars, I used to be a car guy myself. Up in Northern California, we had Scott Road, Highway 49, Salmon Falls Road. We'd hit that every Saturday, never on Sunday, because the bikers get it on Sunday. But yeah, home field advantage is a huge thing if you are chasing someone. And then also having the knowledge from Finn, hey, fly low so that it scrambles their systems.
Their sensors.
Yeah.
What do their sensors sense exactly?
I mean,
why would that be detrimental to them and not to the Millennium Falcon sensors?
The ability to lock on to targets easy?
I don't think that's what sensors do. Sensors give information about the I don't know. I mean, that's what the lock-on they give information.
But the thing that I don't want to happen is I don't want us to claim that she is an expert at it all of a sudden when she's really not. And I don't want to claim that she's going, against these expert TIE fighters because we don't actually know that. Those are, I feel, exaggerations in order to help hammer in your point. But they aren't. Okay,
I think even an average TIE fighter pilot would be more experienced than Rey flying the Millennium Falcon for the first time.
Okay, and then
let's say that they're average.
Vader in a TIE fighter who just massacred Luke's whole squadron.
What about it?
Why didn't Luke die? Why isn't that like the story bending?
Because Han Solo shot him out of the sky from the back. That's why. Well, he was just about to kill Luke.
That's exactly a story bending for the narrative purpose. Right?
That's a Deus Ex Machina. That had nothing to do with Luke doing anything, because Luke would have died. So you can't call that Luke's feat. It's not a feat that he did. He didn't outfly Darth Vader. Right? You can't say that I'm not right here. You know, like he didn't outfly Darth Vader.
No,
he had a Deus Ex Machina, which is a plot device used to when somebody comes and saves the hero at the last moment to save Luke, because otherwise there wouldn't have been no Empire Strikes Back. He would have killed Luke Skywalker, and that would have been the credits would have popped up.
And that's exactly what happened.
You can't compare those. You can't compare them. You can't say they're the same at all.
If the TIE fighter shot down the Falcon here, then that would have ended.
And then not to mention,
well. I don't see how those are any different.
Luke had a squadron at his back. He had fighters with him, which they had the Vader
last second, not
for the whole last second. Yeah, but Vader was about to kill him. Yes. All right, give me 1 second. Give me a second. I got mail from the lady upstairs. One moment. Sorry, guys. Jesus Christ. We'll get back into this in 1 second. 1 sec.
Yep. No worries. So, how's everyone in the chat doing? I mean, I do feel like a lot of our conversation will end up with kind of an agree to disagree. I still can't quite wrap my head around how where we're going is not well within the parameters of what has been set up for previously. But I am still looking forward to hearing these points, because it's interesting to hear these things on the other side, because I normally don't get these conversations. So,
but yeah, no, like honestly, I really don't feel like you're a disingenuous dude. I feel like you're a good guy who's willing to see reason, and I don't see how you can see Rey flying against two trained pilots in the Millennium Falcon, a ship she's never flown before. Shown to struggle with it, to Luke having a squadron at his back and then almost dying, if not for Han Solo saving him. It's not the same. Luke didn't do anything that would establish him as a better pilot than Darth Vader, or so it's not the same. It's not the same at all.
I mean, other than evading Vader's sensors and things for that time period, but
for a couple of seconds before he almost died, like he. So it's completely unbelievable.
That portion of the film is stretched for more narrative effect.
Of course.
So I guess I don't really know how long it is, but I mean, this is Luke's first time in an X-wing, first time in non-terrestrial flight. Like,
okay.
It's literally like 100% of flying in the sky is flying against air resistance and gravity. Mm-hmm. Right? Okay. You can't just hop into so in the context, once again, Rey has more reason to be good at flying. She does the smaller feat. She has home field advantage. She has less impressive maneuvers. She's going up against less impressive pilots. And she has extra.
Well, you just said we don't know that, though. They could be anywhere from
less impressive than Darth Vader.
Yes. Oh, less impressive. Okay. Got you.
And this is, I just, I can't get there with you, because I see her as again, like I said, all of these feats are the lowest, despite her having the highest reason.
Well, if I compare the lowest feat to somebody to the highest feat to somebody, of course it's going to make it seem worse than what it is, but it's still better than what she should be able to. Yeah, but it's
so this is both her best and worst, right?
Of course, but that's what you just said is a true statement, but it's also completely invalid. Right? It doesn't matter if it's her best or her worst. It doesn't matter if it's better or worse than Luke Skywalker's, which it is, right? Because what I'm trying to establish here is that her flying feat cannot be compared to Luke Skywalker's. Luke Skywalker had a lot of help, and it has been pre-established. It has been pre-established that Luke Skywalker is a good pilot. We don't have to get into, again, the storytelling.
It's told
doesn't
to us
require.
More often. Yes,
it is. Yes, exactly. That's because that's why in our
Luke's
minds,
flight is at the very end of the film.
Exactly. That's forwarding my point. That's forwarding my point, right? Like you're saying that, like, we literally get to watch or see multiple instances where Luke Skywalker is built up as a pilot. We can get into the science of it and how shooting womp rats isn't the same, and how terrestrial flight isn't the same as space flight. In the context of a storytelling perspective, we get to see that one character is pre-established as being a good pilot, and one character, for the sake of the plot,
yeah.
I am not questioning Rey's ability to fly a ship, but for the sake of the plot, from a storytelling standpoint, it's simply, I can fly stuff because the plot right now needs me to. At no other point before that, instead of us watching Rey eat space biscuits, right? We could have had something that showed her skills as a pilot. Somebody could have said anything, right? So while I do not argue Rey's piloting skills or that she can pilot, I'm not trying to disestablish this. It is badly written, and it makes her come off as somebody who is just good at everything because the plot needs her to be. Again, my definition of Mary Sue is also how the plot bends around them. She then establishes, after they defeat the TIE fighters, that, I've flown ships before. That's her only exposition. And it's fine. We have to believe it because she said it. Cool. She's established as a pilot. but yet still outflies two trained pilots in ships that they have trained in a ship that she's never flown before. On top of that, let's talk about home field advantage.
Sure.
Having home field advantage and being able to know the topology of a terrain does not immediately give you the ability to be able to fly around that terrain. Just because I know that there is a basketball hoop in front of me does not mean that I can make a basket. Like, Rey knew that she could fly into the Star Destroyer, and from her perspective, she has the ability of seeing inside that Star Destroyer as a scavenger, as a person being on the ground and climbing it. And that perspective is highly different than flying it in the Millennium Falcon. And then being able to do complicated maneuvers like threading the needle, right? Like flying the ship through a very thin point. Something like that Luke Skywalker, when he tried to do. What do you mean? Turning it off and on again? Turning it? No. I'm that isn't. I never mentioned that point. That's not one of my points against her.
Yeah.
That was a force moment. We know that was a force moment, right? She felt that instinct to turn it off, and then it flips, and then Finn shoots the thing, and then she turns it on, and that's why they were so impressed by that. That was the force. I excuse that moment. I don't think that was a crazy maneuver that she did, right? Because I felt like she was guided through the force. But everything else she did, outflying the pilots, threading the needle in the Millennium Falcon through a Star Destroyer, home field advantage or not, whether she knows where things are, doesn't give her the ability to know how to fly through them in the way that she did in a ship that she's never piloted against two pilots who have training in their ships. That's my
argument. Again, Luke has never flown an X-wing before. I mean, I feel like that point.
But he's flown a T6. But he is established as a pilot. We're getting into the mechanics of an X-wing. And even if the movie, I know the movie doesn't, because I said we wouldn't use expanded media. He has experience flying in a T-16, and you can say that terrestrial flight and space flight are different. Nowhere in the movies is that established. The only thing that is established is that Luke Skywalker is a good pilot, and let's not forget, Luke Skywalker's story follows the hero's journey. He's supposed to not have experience doing these extraordinary things and then do something extraordinary. That is how the hero's journey is written. So when he gets his moment at the end, it's supposed to be something. He's supposed to be the underdog. It's supposed to be in a situation that he's never been in. It's supposed to be against overwhelming odds. That's what makes it a situation that is part of the hero's journey. But from a storytelling perspective, it is established that he can fly. But getting into all the details about the X-Wing and space and terrestrial, it doesn't matter because it has been established already that he can fly.
Oh, okay. So I definitely hear, I mean, I get what you're saying. I just don't see how this bends anything in the universe more to Rey, more than it did anyone else. Like, yes, you can say there's absolutely Deus Ex, which, I mean, that's kind of what the Force is mostly. But, and if they survive because of Deus Ex, that literally is the story bending because that's what it needs to happen. And my point is it bends less for Rey in terms of her flight than it does for the other protagonists.
No, I'm not saying that her piloting skills or her ability to fly a plane is
so why does it make her Mary Sue? Because it's not established, is what you're saying.
No. She establishes it when the plot needs it to be established.
So that's a problem with how the story is written, not
exactly. And I said in the beginning that no, because she's a character in the story. So of course it has to do with how the story is written. Because I said in the beginning that part of my definition of a Mary Sue is how the from a storytelling perspective, they do things that either is against what has been established or do things where the plot bends around them. Our first knowledge of knowing that Rey is a pilot.
Does the hero's journey not apply to Rey doing something extraordinary when we've only established that she's a pilot? Because that was a point that you did mention. Is that
no? Luke follows the hero's journey. Rey doesn't. Her story arc doesn't follow the hero's journey.
That's a whole separate topic.
Like Luke is the classic, like the whole hero's journey thing. Rey is not.
I mean, like he doesn't ever.
He's just a hero from the start
or anything like that. But But yeah, I mean, I obviously he is a primary example of the hero's journey more so
Hmm.
than Rey. I will agree with that, but I
Hmm.
won't agree that Rey doesn't follow a form of the hero's journey as well as the heroine's journey at the same time,
I
which is
don't.
odd. But
This is the thing. I don't think that Ray shouldn't have, even if she did follow the strict hero's journey, right? That she shouldn't have moments where she overcomes particular odds and stuff like that, right? But this would be, you have to understand from a perspective telling from a storytelling standpoint. If in A New Hope, Luke, who has never picked up a lightsaber, picks one up and then would have defeated Darth Vader even if he was injured, would have been fucking stupid. It would have been dumb. He'd be what? Like, so his feat in A New Hope is comparative to the journey that he takes throughout that first movie, throughout that first story. Whereas Rey basically has the equivalent to if she was Luke Skywalker, she would have just fought Darth Vader in the first movie and beat him,
I mean, so
which is
now
ridiculous.
we're jumping to the fighting topic. I
We
mean,
can because
do you
I
feel
think
we can move
again,
on? Okay,
yeah, I think again we're not going to agree on the piloting thing as well, which is fine, which is fine.
totally fine. No,
Yeah.
I'm enjoying I'm enjoying taking this journey with you. This is fun.
I am as well. I am as well. This is fun. It's fun.
Uh, I mean, is there any final wrap up things about the flight about flying?
No, I think I've said everything that I have to say about that.
Okay, fair enough.
Oh my
Um,
god.
all right, so why don't we'll jump into the fights, right? Because this is a big point of contention is that
So
Ray
annoying.
ended up defeating Kylo Ren, in The Force Awakens. Now,
Mhm.
truthfully, if I'm writing the story, yeah, I'm not gonna have her defeat him. But again, they gave us ample explanation and reason, and it wasn't out of character or outlandish or outside of the parameters of that have been pre-established into this universe. Yes, Kylo Ren is a far more capable fighter than Rey, and we see that throughout the entire trilogy, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, she does get the victory here, but in the throne room scene fight, Rey fights 3 guards, he fights 5 guards. When they fight while she's on Pisana and he's in his ship, he's clearly the better. When they fight again on the second Death Star, like he's far outclasses her. Actually, it's kind of funny because they where they end up is right next to his ship. That means that he was herding her like cattle that that entire time, and she's
Okay.
like hella exhausted at the end of that fight.
Okay.
So yeah, he is a superior fighter. So
To be clear, I think by the Rise of Skywalker, her Mary Sueism kind of goes down a little bit. I believe that this is for because you have people who say that Anakin is only Mary Sue in the Phantom Menace. My arguments are primarily for The Force Awakens. Just to be clear.
okay,
So
okay,
yeah,
uh,
primarily for The Force Awakens.
and that's fair enough. I think
And The Last Jedi as well. I'll say those first 2 movies, but by the third movie, she's had a year of training. She's strong with the Force. I understand that. I think that now she's kind of been fleshed into the character that she needs to be. So like, I don't think that the things that she does in The Rise of Skywalker are beyond what she is capable of doing at that point in her story.
okay. And so
Yeah.
why do you believe her fight with Kylo Ren is outside of the scope of what she should be capable of in her story? And also
Sorry.
let's also remember that these films don't exist in a vacuum, right? So they do exist in the context of all of these films, right?
Yes.
Meaning that there are certain things that will be done or changed because we don't want to have just the same exact story told
Hmm.
again. I think that for one thing, I think the Force. You'll probably agree with me. I think the Force Awakens gets too much crap for its similarities to A New Hope, but those similarities were actually meant to accentuate the differences between the characters. Specifically, Rey being the exact opposite character as Luke. But yeah, I mean, what are your why do you believe it was outside of the scope?
Um, well, I'm the one who's arguing against the points. So if you would like to establish why you think that Rey was kind of justified in beating Kylo Ren,
Okay.
if you go with that, yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I'll go first. I mean, so we have a couple of things here, right? So, first and foremost, I think the most common thing that this fight is compared to is Luke versus Vader um, in The Empire Strikes Back, which is my personal favorite fight because of I think it's perfect. But in the context of that fight, if we were to compare protagonist and antagonist, then we would have to admit that as far as melee combat goes, Rey is more experienced than Luke going into that fight.
Okay.
So yeah, Luke gets his ass handed. He gets his hand handed to him. Vader's up here. Luke's way down here. What I'm proposing is that Kylo Ren is nowhere near as strong as Vader, right? We actually get that. I mean, and he's afraid that he will never be. That's told to us in the film, right? So comparing Luke and Vader, right, we have to bring him down because he's not at that level yet.
Yeah, I agree.
Comparing Rey to Luke, she's above his level. So already with just that, the difference has been lowered. So
I think your first I just want to. I don't mean to cut you off. I think your first mistake there is comparing Vader to Kylo and comparing Rey to Luke. You should be comparing Kylo to Rey and Darth Vader to Luke because that's who they fought. Not
I
one
agree.
to the other.
I agree, and that's kind of why I wanted you to go because I wanted your thoughts on it. So I'm not arguing against points that you don't have because I don't know your feelings on it. But sure. I'm just saying that's what I see it most often compared to. But yeah, as long as we can divorce, that fight. Yes, he got his ass kicked, and he should have. This is a whole different animal and not as far apart in terms of skill. But we do know that Rey is a physical combatant, that she is capable. We know that Force users all use the Force. They use it from birth. It's not something that that's not the first time she's using it, essentially, just like Anakin's using it subconsciously, and we see little kids using it in the Clone Wars and this and that. All right, so then we have yes, she's skilled with a staff, and I hear a lot of arguments that bow staff doesn't translate over to a lightsaber.
It doesn't.
And I mean that's not correct. I mean, so
it is correct. It is correct. I've heard multiple martial artists talk about this. I can tag you in videos if you like. It does not translate. And somebody who's a former practitioner of martial arts, when I was younger, I can attest to the same. It's not the same at all.
I'm not saying
there are two completely different weapons.
Yes, absolutely. And the lightsaber is even very different from a sword. It really is its own animal. But
it's more of a sword than a staff.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's never been my argument. I mean, training with a sword is better to start with before a lightsaber, but being very experienced with a staff versus someone that has no melee experience at all, you're definitely going to have a huge leg up with your physical fitness, with understanding reach, with understanding your footing, with your tactical awareness, being able to read your opponent and their attacks. I mean, I think there's 1,000 things that she's going to come into this fight with from all of that experience. That someone that hasn't fought with anything isn't. So that's carrying it over, right? Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. But I'm going to tell you why none of that matters. But you are right. Everything you're saying is correct, but I'm going to tell you why it's wrong.
Well, I mean, in the long scheme of things, it doesn't matter because she's terrible with a lightsaber. She is getting her.
Wait. Are you saying she's terrible with a lightsaber, but she still wins?
Yes.
Against Kylo, who is not terrible with the lightsaber?
Yes, I am. I'm saying she's not.
You're forwarding my argument.
I'm saying she's not on the same skill level as him with the lightsaber.
which
That
is
is
exactly
absolutely true.
that's a major point that should not be ignored.
So and that's what I'm getting into.
Okay.
So we've already established that the gap in their skills isn't quite the same, although the gap in lightsaber combat specifically is. Now, obviously, we have the Chekhov's gun with the bowcaster, as well as so he has a lot of physical damage going into the fight, and then he has a lot of emotional, spiritual damage after killing his father, as referenced in the next movie, as well as the actual turning point in the fight. So the thing that I'm asserting is that the actual comparison for that fight is Luke in the X-Wing. She doesn't defeat him off of her own skills. She reaches him. She defeats him by reaching into the Force. She loses based off of her own skill. Now he has every opportunity to kill her. He holds her up to a cliff, and instead of just Spartan kicking her off, he holds her there and says, you need a teacher. I can show you the ways of the Force. So, yeah, he's better than her, but he's coming in there physically wounded, emotionally wounded. He's not trying to kill her. And if you have something like a lightsaber, like if your goal is to try and disarm your foe, that's a much higher and loftier goal than them trying to survive. And then she reaches into the Force, just like Luke did on the X-Wing, because Luke didn't make that shot on his own skill, on his own power. He made that shot by relying on the Force.
Okay. All right. I can argue every single one of those points that have been made.
Let's go.
First and foremost, you can't compare Luke to Rey in this instance because you need to compare Kylo to Rey, and you need to compare Vader to Luke. Second of all, to say that
I don't understand why. I mean,
you don't understand why?
Yeah.
Because Rey didn't fight Darth Vader and Luke didn't fight Kylo Ren. That's why Kylo fought.
Oh,
Rey
you're talking about the Empire Strikes Back fight. I got you.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So, now let's talk about this. The first point. What was it? The comparative arguments of fighting skill between Luke and Rey. That's easily, I can discuss that. Rey may have more physical fighting skills than Luke Skywalker does, right? I believe that's true. Also, her fighting skills are more established than Luke's. People often bring up the excuse that, oh, she lived on a hostile desert planet. You know who lived on a hostile desert planet as well? Luke Skywalker. So to believe that he can't physically fight people is beyond the realm of saying that that's not plausible. However, I'm not going to make that an argument because it's not established. But we never see Luke physically fighting with anybody, right? I'm just saying that.
We know he's good with a rifle, but
bringing up
experience with a rifle. Yeah, but go ahead.
Yeah, but bringing up that Rey is good at physically fighting because she lives on a hostile desert planet is ridiculous because so does Luke. He lives on a hostile desert planet, and we have no evidence to support whether he does or does not have physical fighting skills, right? But we have more evidence to support that he doesn't, which is fine. So yes, Rey does have more general physical fighting skill than Luke Skywalker based on what we've seen. You know what else she has less of than Luke Skywalker? Less lightsaber fighting skills than he does. Because we've already established that she can physically fight with the bow staff, which does not transfer over into fighting with the lightsaber. This has been a topic of contention, but there have been many martial artists who say that a two-handed bow staff does not carry over into fighting, one, with the sword, and two, with the lightsaber, because the lightsaber is a completely different weapon than a sword is as well, but it's more sword than a lightsaber. So to say that her fighting skills transfer over from her bow staff to her to the lightsaber it's from the majority that I've seen is just not true. Second of all,
what about the other things that I said do transfer over? I mean, even if you
I'm going to talk about that right now. I'm going to talk about that right now. Yeah, I definitely didn't forget about that. So I'm going to give you a great analogy that I heard. Right. I don't know if you play fighting games or if you game
I do
at all, but if let's say, and this is one of the best analogies that I've heard. Let's say that I am a professional Street Fighter player. I'm a professional Street Fighter player, right? And I pick up Mortal Kombat for the first time. I'm not going to be as good as Mortal Kombat as I am going to be in Street Fighter. However, I'm going to have fighting game fundamentals that's going to allow me to understand things like distancing, countering, frame data. That's going to make me better than somebody who is not a professional in any fighting games whatsoever. But it still does not make me a master at Mortal Kombat. And I will get my ass handed to me by people who are professional Mortal Kombat players.
True.
Kylo Ren is the professional Mortal Kombat player. Rey is the person picking up the controller for the first time and playing Mortal Kombat, even with her professional Street Fighter experience.
Now, I mean,
I don't see how that analogy. Yes, go ahead.
And that is a great example, because a lot of times on these fighting games you can set handicaps, and we can't ignore that he was at a severe handicap throughout the entire fight.
There are actually fighting game players who do that, and they set handicaps and they still win because they are much better at the game than the other player. There have been I played a lot of games. I play a lot of competitive games, and I've played a lot of fighting games, especially in my youth and fairly recently. And there have been times where I have purposely put on handicaps, like lowered my health to 50% and still beat people because they weren't as good at the game that I was. So, like,
I'm a competitive Smash Brothers player, or used to be with Project M.
so as a competitive Smash player, I'm pretty sure you can understand the sentiment. If I played a game with somebody and I had 2 stocks, and I allow the other person who has never played the game before, right, or who has experience in other similar party brawler games, to play against me, and they have 5 stocks, and you're a professional at this game, do you think that professional is going to lose against that person? I highly doubt it. I'm pretty sure that a professional Smash player can drop down to 2 stocks and still beat somebody who's not as proficient with 5 stocks or 6 or 7 stocks.
I mean, I went, so my second tournament I ever went to was at the Googleplex up in Northern California.
Okay.
It's international, and yeah, I mean, I ended up going against a pro, and I whomped his ass on our first game. He utterly picked me apart and made me look like a little punk going forward. But I mean, I still, with your analogy, the person with all the handicaps can still lose. Things can still happen, and especially once we factor in the force.
I'll also let's factor those things in as well.
But do you deny that Kylo Ren, I mean, she was on her back foot and in full retreat for, let's say, 85% of the entire fight?
No, because she should have been. She should have been.
Okay, I mean, I'm just saying that we agree that happened.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Right. So, where's I going with this? Okay. The Bowcaster argument. This is another one that's easily debunkable as well. I'll get into the Bowcaster, and then I'll get into more points as well. Okay. The Bowcaster. Okay, so Kylo Ren was injured because he got shot by the Bowcaster, and the first thing that people love to bring up about this argument is how powerful the Bowcaster is, right? Because we see it in the movie. We see it blasting troopers right away. Okay, Kylo Ren. What species is he in Star Wars?
He's human.
He's human, right? So he's not like some armored alien. He's not a Rancor. He's not, he's not anything crazy, right?
Yeah. Speaking of which, we definitely need more aliens at the forefront. I mean,
I agree.
That's a whole side topic. Go ahead.
Yeah. So he's human, right? Which means that he has human durability, if not for his ability to wield the Force. Okay. So other humans or non-Force users, when taking blaster fire, even in armor, die.
Mm-hmm.
They die, right? We see Rey kill 3 stormtroopers with a regular blaster pistol. Armored stormtroopers, right? So when Kylo gets shot with the Bowcaster, who is a regular human who doesn't have any physical durability because of his biology, right, does not immediately die because of it, then how much damage did he actually take? I would argue that he took less damage than a normal person would from a regular blaster, a pistol at that. He gets shot in his side and he lives. If the Bowcaster did as much damage to Kylo Ren as it did to everybody else, without him blocking that damage with the Force, he should have died immediately, but he does not. So how much damage does he actually take? And before I know you might want to make a point, but I want to make another analogy to you. And I want you to think about this critically, right? And realistically, if you were watching a movie, right, that you have never seen before, you've never seen this movie before, and the movie, and I give this analogy in my other live stream. You're watching a movie you've never seen before, and the movie starts off, and you have a guy on a roof. You don't know any of the characters yet, right? You see a guy on a roof, and he has a 50 caliber sniper rifle. Right, a lot of people know that a 50 caliber sniper rifle is a very powerful weapon, right?
Yeah.
He shoots tanks. Gotcha. Exactly, right? He shoots another person with it. Now, just humans are in this movie, right? He shoots another person with it and it blows that person's chest out, right? Their whole, it explodes, right? Like, obviously, because that's what the rifle would do, right? It blows a hole out their back, okay? Then that same person, with that same, what have we established? We've established that we have a person with a rifle, and that rifle is incredibly powerful. We know that without any exposition or being told about it because we see it, right? That same person then shoots another person, another character we don't know, with that same rifle. And instead, what happens is it hits the person in the chest or in the stomach, and instead of that person's back being blown out, they simply kneel over, and then they get up. What would you logically infer? That person must have, one, not taking as much damage as that the rifle can deal, because the damage on the rifle isn't suddenly nerfed for some reason, right? But the person did not take as much damage. So when people bring up how powerful the Bowcaster argument is, it's ridiculous because the power of the Bowcaster is irrelevant because Kylo Ren did not take as much damage as the Bowcaster can deal. And that is logically like inferred easily. This is a fact that he did not take as much damage from the Bowcaster. So how injured is he really?
I mean, I get what you're saying.
He has a flesh wound. He has a flesh wound.
So are you implying that he's not injured?
No, I'm implying that he is injured. You know who else is injured in this fight? Rey. Do people always forget that she was literally concussed right before this fight? Do you know what a concussion does to you? She was knocked out, so she has a concussion. Rey has a concussion. She shouldn't be able to stand, let alone fight. So Rey has a concussion. She's not perfectly healthy. And Kylo has a flesh wound, which isn't going to affect a concussion is in the head. It's in the brain. It messes with your equilibrium, right? With your thinking, with your ability to react. Kylo has a flesh wound. None of that is affected by him. But Rey with a concussion, oh, cool. We'll ignore her injury, but focus on Kylo's flesh wound that he deflected most of the damage with the Force.
Okay, so yeah. I mean, let's jump into that. And yeah, I mean, she absolutely did get yeeted into a tree,
like 30 feet into the air, mind you. I will almost bypass that by saying she landed in snow, but still.
Because I have myself been yeeted into a tree pretty high up by doing some backwoods snowboarding. Again, I'm from Northern California. It's not fun for sure. But
I'm pretty sure it isn't.
No, that being said, I mean, let's go back to this analogy. Now, yeah, Kylo Ren is a durable dude, and obviously he didn't die when he got shot by the Bowcaster. I don't understand what the argument is though, because like
that he's not as injured as people make him out to be.
Okay, let's say that someone's driving a car.
You've never heard somebody argue.
Let's say someone's driving a car 60 miles per hour. They hit someone, that person dies.
Yep.
They hit another person, that person dies. They hit two people, both of those people die. All right. Let's say Floyd Mayweather is walking across the street. Car hits him 60 miles per hour. Flips in the air, lands, gets up. He didn't die. Awesome. Then he walks into his fight. You're saying that that's not going to affect his ability to fight.
I feel like your analogy is lacking a lot of different variables here. One, we don't know those other people who what happened to them when they got hit by the car, because getting hit by a car is different than getting shot or where you get shot, right? So
By that token, we don't necessarily know what happened to all the stormtroopers. We don't know if it was if all of them died or if some of them survived because of the hardening chest plate, right?
I mean, a lot of people don't take headshots in Star Wars. You don't need to be shot in the head. You can be shot in the chest or in the stomach, and they still die, right? Um, so I'm saying that the car analogy is different because getting hit by a car also comes into like you're flying, you land on the pavement, or you hit a building, or you hit a tree, or you wrap around a pole. There's a lot of other factors of why those other people could have died. I feel like
I feel like there's
you're
very
using
getting shot as well.
I getting hit by a car is close to getting shot. Not at all.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But and then you're using Floyd Mayweather as an example. Floyd Mayweather is still a person. He doesn't have any superpowers like the Force does. Kylo Ren does. We can only logically infer that he used the Force to increase his durability and not die from the Bowcaster. That's the only logical inference that we can make, because if the Bowcaster blows away other people and doesn't blow Kylo away, then he didn't take as much damage that the Bowcaster can deal. I don't see how that's not logically inferred or obvious.
No,
right?
no, and I'm not disputing that he didn't take the full brunt of it. Again, we've agreed not to use outside information, but that is
so you agree.
Explained.
So you agree that he hasn't taken as much damage as the Bowcaster can deal. So he's not as injured. Using the Bowcaster's power as an argument is invalid. You agree with that?
No, I don't agree that using its power is invalid, but I do agree that he didn't die like most of the people we saw shot straight in the chest did. Yes,
because he didn't take as much damage as the Bowcaster can wield. If a Bowcaster can blast 3 people into the air, right, by shooting one of them, and then it shoots him, and he's like, okay, that's cool. Then
he didn't go. It's cool. He actually barely limped off of that bridge.
I know. I'm being facetious,
but I get. No, I get what you're saying. Mostly. So my mind goes to video game terms. I guess with this. So if the either the shot had the same amount of damage, but he was more durable with them due to the Force, right? Because we know all Force users are just naturally gifted in fighting and with their stamina and all this stuff. So either it did full damage and he and that full damage was not enough to kill him, or he could have taken less damage, or because it was shot at a much further range than all the other ones, that could be a factor, or because of where he was hit versus the other ones, that could be a factor. What I'm saying is there's a lot of different variables around being shot, of some people being shot and dying, some people being shot and not dying, that I'm not willing to say that this being a powerful gun doesn't play a role in it, despite the fact that he survived.
So if range is a factor, like you just said, that means that there is a fall off on the amount of damage that a projectile can do the farther it gets, right? Because that's physics, meaning that he took less damage. If you even use the range argument, because he was farther away, so he took less damage. I don't see how any of this,
I'm agreeing that he took less damage.
Yeah. Okay, so we've established that he took less damage. I don't agree
that the power of it is not a factor. That's all I'm saying.
But people try to use it as saying that because you shot with the Bowcaster exclusively, and then give examples and comparisons to the Bowcaster doing a lot of damage to other people as an argument to forward their point. It's an argument that actually goes against their point.
I mean, I use it because if it's the Chekhov's gun, it was meant to explicitly explain the damage. That's why they focus on it several times during during the storytelling.
What do you mean the Chekhov's gun? Can you explain what that means?
It's just something that they do in writing, where you will explicitly show like an item, like a gun, being used
Okay.
over and over again in
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
order for that same item to play a larger role in how
So
the movie
it's like a
unfolds.
MacGuffin. It's just it's a trope.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. And I it's that's what I'm saying, that I think that that trope is actually goes against the argument. It goes against the argument. It's shown as being powerful, and then it shoots Kylo, and then it's kind of just like he doesn't take as much damage that the weapon can to dish out. But we are to assume that he does, which doesn't make sense, because if it kills everybody else and it doesn't kill Kylo, it means that he deflected most of the damage using the Force. If you're using the range as a factor, that's also forwarding my argument that he took less damage.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, again, I'm not saying he didn't take less damage. I'm just saying that he did take a lot of damage. That's all. But let's go ahead and move forward
Sure.
with the
Yeah.
fight.
We've established that Kylo is injured and Rey is injured as well. Like I just said, she's concussed. Okay. Because she got knocked out, but she's fine. But Kylo's injured, so we're only going to focus on Kylo because Kylo's injuries are the only ones that matter. Despite the fact that I think that his flesh wound is less serious than an actual concussion. A flesh wound would hinder your ability to fight because you're in pain, but a concussion would hinder your ability to fight because your brain is literally scrambled at this point, right? Like a concussion happens when your brain, which is swimming around in water, bounces around your head and gets damaged. So Rey's injury should be more serious than Kylo's injury, right? As far as their ability to fight or use their reflexes or focus, right? Because her brain is damaged and Kylo has an injury to the side. On top of that, even if I was generous about this, even I could be generous about this and still debunk this stuff, because even if we take in Kylo's injury and just assume that Rey was never injured in this fight, Kylo, with all of his training and all of his skill, who has wielded a lightsaber for through all of his training, was trained by one of the greatest Jedi's of all time, has killed God knows how many people, was trained by a Sith Lord, still loses to Rey, is ridiculous. Even injured, he still should have stomped Rey easily. And my next point, and this is one of the major points that I'm going to make here, the argument that Kylo is injured and he's mentally broken, that's why he lost to Rey. If he was so injured and so mentally broken, how did he beat Finn, who arguably has more training than Rey does? He's trained since birth to be a soldier, right? But he hands Finn his ass. Finn gets one good hit on him, but he should have lost to Finn if this is the case. If he's so injured and he's so mentally conflicted, it should have hindered his ability to fight against Finn. But he still beats Finn. But then he loses to Rey. Why? Because he's a little more worn out after that? Like,
I mean, he is bleeding out.
Okay, okay. And Rey's concussed. So
no. But I'm saying it felt like you were making an argument against like his stamina draining.
No. I'm making the argument that if people say that somebody said in my chat, trained to be a janitor. You think that janitor was his primary job? He's a soldier first, and then he does janitorial duties. So,
yeah, and that's actually when I jumped in was while you were searching, because yes, he did have melee training. I mean,
yes,
we're not using outside media, but the book Before the Awakening came out the same day as the film to explain some of the stuff that wasn't deemed necessary to be in the movie. But that's a whole
give me a sec. I just want to answer a question in my chat here. It says blaster bolts aren't projectiles, they're really hot. Don't they cauterize? To be clear, the Chewbacca's bowcaster actually shoots a metal rod that is heated with plasma energy. So it is actually a projectile. Specifically the bowcaster. All right. So what's your argument against everything that I just said here?
Absolutely. So this is exactly why I equate this fight more to Luke in the X-Wing, because it's the same reason that Red Leader was unable to make the shot, despite having far more training and experience in an X-Wing, right? He couldn't make the shot, not under his own power.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Luke didn't attempt the shot on his own power. He stopped.
You mean his own skill?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, under his own. Yes, it was under his power. It was not under his own skill.
Yeah.
But he used the Force to guide him. Even earlier in the film, when he asks about it, it's told to him that the Force can guide your actions. So Rey, in this sense, and this is the echo of that, because Finn, while supposedly would have less experience fighting, but more training in it, was unable to take Kylo Ren. But the main point is, we do know he's not taking his A game. We know that even though he was...
Wait, why would Finn have less experience fighting? He's a stormtrooper. He's been...
Actual experience, not training. That's what I'm saying.
Why would he have less experience?
Because we know that what we saw in the film was his first mission going out as a stormtrooper.
Yes, you're correct.
But yeah, just like Red Leader couldn't make the shot, Finn couldn't take a Kylo Ren. And I would even argue that Finn held up a little bit better than Rey did, who again was in full retreat. It wasn't until she stopped and listened to the Force, and that was the turning point. Okay. And I think that is the whole purpose of the film.
So, a person who has never had training in the Force. So now the Force is the argument, because I knew that was coming up, right? Even somebody in my chat said, but she has the Force, though. She has the Force. You know who else has the Force? You know who's been training in the Force? You know who's more powerful in the Force at this point in the movie? Kylo fucking Ren. Why do we... I don't mean to... I do curse sometimes. Don't think this as I just get when I'm a little emphatic. Kylo Ren has the Force. Mm-hmm. Kylo Ren is a trained Force user. Kylo Ren is arguably 100 times more proficient in the Force at this point in his life than Rey is. So to say that she uses the Force to beat him is ridiculous, because Kylo Ren can use the Force. How is this a valid argument? I don't understand. Against a better Force user.
And yeah, the validity of the argument is, again, while he is more skilled, there were so many handicaps on him.
Give me a sec. J Cogs, literally the definition of a concussion is being knocked out. That's what a concussion is. This guy said just because she was knocked out does not mean she has a concussion. That's exactly what it means. Next. I'm sorry, continue.
I don't necessarily know that that's true, but that's okay.
Wow, people call me toxic. Kylo wasn't trying to kill her, you dumbass. Okay. So comments like that are going to get you banned. Okay, we're having a very civil discussion here. I know that me and Choco are definitely disagreeing, but I don't feel any hostility. Do you feel any hostility coming from me, by the way? I just want to make sure I'm not being hostile.
No.
Okay.
I think this is fine, and we can post it. We can let the viewers decide or whatever. I'm enjoying. I am enjoying the discussion. But yeah, I am still a little lost, because yes, absolutely, Kylo Ren is a Force user. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But he's coming into this, like we said, physically weakened, emotionally weakened, already tired out.
Still beats Finn, though, despite that. Beats Finn.
Yes. Which,
okay.
again, continues to, have him bleed out and whatnot. He's not trying to defeat Rey. You
don't have to kill somebody to defeat them. As we see in Darth Vader versus Luke. You don't have to kill somebody to defeat them.
That's true.
So he could have still beaten her.
And essentially, he did. If you recall him holding her up to the cliff where she is done, she can no longer continue to run. He can push her off. He could do whatever. He could kill her at any of those moments.
But he doesn't beat her.
But he doesn't. Yes.
She beats him.
Correct.
So
she reaches
into
the Force, just like Luke did, and she wins the fight in the last.
Because
moment.
the plot bends to benefit her. That's what I'm trying to... saying that she reaches into the Force... Again, Kylo Ren is a more proficient Force user than her. If people are saying that the Force guided her ability to fight back Kylo, his force ability doesn't kick in to his instincts, his training, his speed, his reflexes, all of that are not enhanced by the force as well. You see, like for what you say for the other, Luke explained this perfectly, right? Powerful light, powerful dark. The force isn't biased. There's no bias in the force. It wasn't saying, hey, the light side wasn't like, oh, Rey, you should really, you know what I mean? We're gonna boost you past Kylo to make sure that you beat his ass, because the force doesn't have any bias. You can tap into the force, but there's powerful light, powerful dark, equal. But if they are equal, Kylo starts up here, Rey starts down here. If she got a boost in the force, it shouldn't put her past him. They should both have increased power in the force, but she should never surpass him in his ability to wield the force. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that he's a trained Jedi. He's a trained Jedi. It's people are acting like her ability to wield the force for the first time in a fight should trump his ability to wield the force in a fight.
No, it doesn't trump his ability. But if you can't disregard all of the things that are on him during this fight, as well as the difference in her in that moment. You know what I mean? It's like if you are, arm wrestling a kid, someone who's significantly weaker, and you're just holding them still, and all of a sudden they grab you with two hands and yank it. That's going to sweep you off your feet. Now, I'm not going to make the argument that this isn't an instance of the plot aiding her to win. I mean, in the entire trilogy, she literally never wins anything under her own power. But I just don't understand why this makes it how this is out of character for Star Wars. That's the thing that I'm not connecting with. I'm not connecting with this to your definition of the plot bending like egregiously to Rey versus any of the other protagonists, because
sure.
Again, I mean, there's far more reason for Rey to beat him in this than there is for Luke to beat Vader in Return of the Jedi, to be quite honest.
Yeah, Luke should lose to Vader in Return of the Jedi. He should get his ass handed to him because Vader is much stronger, much more experienced, and much more powerful. Kylo is much stronger, much more experienced, and much more powerful than Rey is. So the same thing should carry over. She should lose. She shouldn't win. Luke lost because he was less trained, less powerful, and less proficient in the Force, as well as a lightsaber. Rey is less powerful, less proficient in the Force, and less experienced with a lightsaber. The same rules apply here, but one is victorious and one is not. So and then Vader, mind you, he beats Luke, or he cuts his hand off after he's injured as well, when Luke hits him in the arm with the lightsaber. So Vader, while having a minor injury, not for as long as Kylo, he still is injured. I know that's a minor point, but still, even with his injuries, even with his conflict, which needed to be explained away by exposition in the second movie, that's bad writing, right? She still beats Kylo Ren. And name one thing that was incredibly stupid in Star Wars that was so dumb that the writers needed to explain it away in the next movie. Like, we know that there's dumb shit, but at least that they can acknowledge, okay, maybe that was dumb, but it does need an explanation because we have a precedent to set why those things happen. Name something else that was so incredibly stupid that needed to be explained away with exposition in the writing, because that whole Snoke scene is not valid to me. To me, that's the writers giving an excuse of how it's possible for Kylo to lose to Rey, which we all know should not have been possible.
So you don't believe that was the director's intention during the scene?
I believe the director's intention was to explain away something that was incredibly dumb.
I mean,
like the character Snoke didn't say it, because Snoke isn't a character. He's a 3D model of. He's not real. He didn't say it. Somebody made him say it. It's written exposition to explain why something in the last movie made absolutely no sense.
No, but I'm saying you don't believe that was J.J. Abrams' intention when
J.J. Abrams didn't write the last. Oh wait, what was his intention? That Rey
that Kylo Ren is unbalanced after killing his father. I mean, I believe that's what you were talking about, right?
Yes, correct. Um, but I don't. It doesn't matter to me what his intentions are. What matters to me is what actually happens. Whether his intentions were to show that Kylo was injured and she lost, or when Rey taps into the Force. The difference is that that moment when she taps into the Force, where she closes her eyes, all
Hmm.
she does is remember that the Force is a thing, and then taps into it. That's usually the moment of awakening that we see in movies, right? Especially like in a hero's journey and stuff like that. With Luke, it was when Ben Kenobi tells him, use the Force, Luke, the famous line, right? That's like his awakening moment, right? Um,
Not when she touched the lightsaber and had the vision.
no, no, no. I'm talking about an awakening moment. I'm talking about the plot trope, the plot device. Not like because this is the moment where like the hero comes out like in Naruto, like when he uses his QB form for the first time was like his awakening moment, right? Um, uh, but with Rey, her awakening moment is completely lacking all context. It's just like, hey, the Force is a thing, and she's like, okay, cool, I can wield this. And to answer your question before, the difference between Rey, Luke, and Anakin is that Anakin and Luke have something that Rey do not in their moments of awakening: a mentor. Rey is just Rey, and she can do things because without guidance, without training, without practice, without knowledge, without wisdom, she can do these things. But everybody else needed some type of mentor to guide them, which Rey did not have in the first movie. So her moment of awakening just seems like BS because it's kind of just like, oh, the Force, sure, you know what I mean? And it just comes off as like, how, Sway? Tell me how. You know what I mean? Like that's why, because it's yeah.
Uh, and I do think that this is kind of where a lot of this whole discourse comes from, because I mean, to me, as I'm watching the film, I am I am watching. I mean, the movie is called The Force Awakens, and I'm watching the Force constantly like whisper to her, and she doesn't know what it is, and she doesn't want it, and she doesn't understand it. We do know that she already is aware of it, and she kind of fangirls over Luke when Luke first gets mentioned. Like, oh my God, he's real. Like all the Force, all this stuff is real. All these things I've been hearing about is real. Like that's awesome. But we also can't diminish Maz Kanata's role in also helping out with that awakening and her. I mean, to me, her awakening moment was when she was being called to from the lightsaber, which was the Force, and she had all these visions of things that would be to come.
Which
Right.
I feel like is another
So
ridiculous
she's
plot point that she ends up there, just from a random person they happen to need help from, and then the Luke's lightsaber's there. With no, we still haven't gotten an explanation of why that happened. By the way, at least not in the movies.
of why what happened. I'm sorry.
Why how Luke Skywalker's lightsaber ended up in or Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber ended up in the hands of Maz Kanata. A story for another time that we
Yeah,
never
I mean
got at another time.
it's sort of being covered in the Star Wars 2020 comic run, but that's a whole separate topic. We don't need to get to
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
But again, uh,
So she
if you've been
tells Ray
seeing
to reach into the Force, right, or to what does she say? The Force is strong with you. Let it in, right? I think those were her words.
yeah, she does say
Okay,
that.
okay, yep. I'm just expounding on what you're just bringing back details. Go ahead.
Okay. Again, that her Force awakening moment like this, or her fully embracing it, and that being like a jarring thing during the fight, meaning she
Mhm.
is fighting at a 4 and then all of a sudden it turns it up to an 8
Mhm.
while you are unbalanced and weakened and just trying to hold her at bay and trying to talk to her and recruit. Like, he tries to talk to her so much whenever they fight. It's kind of weird. I mean, he's obviously a simp, but um again, I mean, I will agree to you that the Force is acting in as a Deus Ex Machina. It is bending. Uh, I just don't see how that is out of context for Star Wars, or more impressive, or like not grounded in the reality that we've set up in these films. And I think this is kind of where our arguments are diverging. Is your
Sorry.
problem is specifically with the writing of the film, and you disagreeing with the directions that they took, which is totally fair and valid. But the arguments about these being, like it's out of context. I mean, you have Qui-Gon Jinn who's like, trust the Force, or whatever. Like at Luke's first lesson, wasn't about lightsaber combat. It was, hey, just listen to the Force. It's talking to
Hmm.
you. And if as long as she's doing that, I don't understand, because she did have that brief mentoring between both Han and Maz. How is this different or unique? I don't know.
They weren't Jedi mentors or Force users.
Maz is Force user.
I would who
Maz.
Maz? Yeah, but she had a little conversation with Rey. It wasn't a mentorship. She talks to her about the Force for like 90 seconds, and then Rey's like, "Nah, screw that. I'm out of here." That's not a mentor moment. She wasn't Rey's mentor. She uh gave her a little bit of advice, but she's not her mentor. So it's not comparable to Obi-Wan or Qui-Gon Jinn, like at all. Her little 90-second speech to Rey is not comparable. Um, and I think the one of the biggest things that is being misconstrued here is also it's not that I'm just comparing Rey to Rey or Rey to Luke or Rey to Anakin. I'm comparing Rey to her opposition. That is the reason why I have an issue with it, because her opposition should be far above her, right? Should be far above her. And again, don't get me wrong, I feel like there are moments in a hero's journey. I'm not just talking about the formula, but just in storytelling in general, where they should overcome opposition, but not like the main bad guy in the first movie. You know what I mean? Who is astronomically more powerful than she is. That is my problem. That is the issue. And I feel like it's saying like, well, why can't Rey tap into the Force and then that's where it ends. She tapped into the Force, but you forget that she tapped into the Force. There's an opposing force against her, and people seem to ignore the opposing force. Even with Kylo's injuries and his conflict, he should have whipped Rey. She shouldn't have been able to stand a chance. He should have defeated her without even having to kill her. He should have been way more proficient in the Force, combat, lightsabers, everything. He's better at her in everything at this point in the story, and she still overcomes him because the Force, forgetting that he can also use the Force. So it's a plot device used for her benefit without the being used against anybody else. Whereas Luke wasn't fighting a Force user in A New Hope; he was fighting the Death Star. The only way that gives him the ability to for a couple of seconds that he is able to try to maneuver around Vader when Vader says the Force is strong with this one is because the Force is strong with him. But Vader again taps into his Force power when he's like, "Well, I'm about to kill this dude," and then Deus Ex Machina. The Deus Ex Machina in Luke's case isn't the Force. The Deus Ex Machina is Han Solo, but Rey's Deus Ex Machina is the Force. But her counter to that Deus Ex Machina should also be the Force. You get what I mean? So like these things are not comparable. They're not comparable.
I mean, I'm seeing both characters being saved by a Deus Ex Machina. This is what I'm kind of seeing. But I mean, okay. I mean, we can continue on this point, or we can move forward if you would like.
I think we should move forward because I think we've hit a point where we're also just not going to bend on this again, which is fine. More of a discussion than anything else. But I do need to use the bathroom. So
Yeah, that's totally fine.
yeah, if you could just give me like 2 minutes, I'll be right back.
Yep.
Please tell me that my OBS screen is on the right. Okay. Intermission.
All right, and how's everyone in the chat? How we all doing? And my volume levels and everything is all good. Like we can all hear me and both sides. And I am enjoying the discussion because this is really the first time we've gotten to get into this like in a long form way. And then I'll end up posting it, and then we can, always do that. Why isn't his camera on? It was just technical difficulties. I believe his camera is on his Twitch stream, but his camera is being used by OBS at this time. So we're just having a conversation like this, but we're doing our thing. Oh, dang it. I you know what, actually, while he's gone, let me look.
All right, I'm back.
Okay.
You can hear me, right, Choco?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Just making sure. I'm out of water. Nice. Bluebird, king of stating facts. It's Blackbird. Thank you. Bluebird, how dare you? Debate Happy 117 in Naruto Universal? No thanks.
Naruto is not universal. All right.
Bro, I'm going to say right now, I hate power scalers. They're like, people think the Star Wars fandom is toxic. Oh my God. Have you ever seen power scalers argue?
I have.
Jesus Christ.
But my ultimate favorite is, both Batman and Itachi stands, which I love Itachi, but please don't ask me, like, if he was fully healthy, what could he do? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, Itachi and Batman, I'm a fan of both, so.
I'm a fan of both, but, like,
yeah.
don't tell me, like, with prep time, he'll beat the Flash in a race, and you're like...
Probably could. I know. Let me stop. I feel like that's like the running joke now, right? Like if Batman with prep time can beat anybody, even and according to power scaling, the Batman that laughs is on par with God. With prep time, he can be God. He can be God. He's like an A1 something stupid, ridiculous, whatever. It's really stupid. That's why I hate power scaling. It's I've seen their arguments. And I hate all these made-up characters like, oh, well, the Source Rune Sonic the Hedgehog could beat Goku because dude, get out of here. Come on. I'm not trying to hear this crap. Outerversal? Dude, come on. Is this happy dude actually in my chat? Batman who laughs is Outerversal. See, this Outerversal crap is I don't want to hear any of that, bro. I don't want to hear any of that. Get out of here. No one can beat God. Batman can with prep time. All right, so the next topic. So we've covered a lot of the points for the Mary Sue stuff. We didn't come to any agreements, which is fine. I do not have Discord. Everybody keeps having me make one. Maybe I'll make one. If I do make one, I'll post it up on TikTok and let you guys know. Now, the next topic that I know you wanted to discuss, so this is going to be a little your more thing starting out with this, was gatekeeping, yes?
Yeah.
Is that what you wanted to move on to?
And I wanted to, because that's where this whole thing started, and so I thought it'd be a great thing to like wrap with.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's the fact that in the very first video that kind of started all of this, the assertion was that it's not gatekeeping because your movie is trash. I may be paraphrasing there, but I am going to say that the actual quality of whatever you were talking about is not relevant in whether or not what you're doing can be considered gatekeeping.
Okay. I think that the first issue in that sentence that you made was when you said gatekeeping is not your movie is trash. These movies don't belong to anybody.
Hmm.
They belong to everybody. So me saying that a movie is garbage is not me saying that your movie is garbage because it is not your movie. It's not my movie. It's not anybody's movie but the person who made it. We can enjoy the movie, but it doesn't belong to anybody. So me saying that the movie is bad because I have a lot of reasons why I believe the sequel trilogies are bad, especially the Rise of Skywalker. Is not me gatekeeping. It's not me saying that this movie sucks. Shouldn't make it less accessible to you. It shouldn't. You shouldn't hear that and be like, "Oh, I guess I can't like this movie anymore." If you do, then like how uh uh what's the word? How perturbable are you? You just like somebody says a movie's bad, so I like movies that people think are bad. I like movies that are bad. Starship Troopers is a terrible movie, but I love it. You know what I mean? It's like if somebody
My
tells
go-to
me,
for that is
you know?
Too Fast, Too Furious, because I love the hell out of that movie. It's
Yeah,
not a good movie.
yeah, like people can tell me that the movie's bad, but it's not going to make me less accessible to the fandom because
Uh,
people tell me it's bad. And if somebody wants to argue with me why they think it's bad, I would gladly have the debate. But if I debate against people who think it's good, I'm not being toxic or I'm not gatekeeping. I'm simply if you have the ability to point out why you think something is good, I should also have just as much right to point out why it's bad. Why am I the toxic one? Why am I the gatekeeper?
because
For
it's not related to your opinion. It's related to the effect, and how it's displayed. You know
which
what I
is
mean? I mean the obvious example of gatekeeping is what Moose displays. If you know, imagine you're walking to a comic book shop, you ask, "Oh, what about this?" And you're like, "Oh, that you like that? That's trash or whatever." Yeah,
Mhm.
it is making a fandom less accessible. I mean, when I was growing up, I thoroughly enjoyed the prequels. Um, I got crapped on constantly, enough to the point where I just wouldn't talk about Star Wars to people anymore because of how often I was being crapped on just for
Mhm.
sharing a different opinion. Now, I'm me, and I think you can kind of get a feel for my personality where you know, I think that's not cool. I speak to people all the time who are like, you know, we now feel more comfortable making content, or there are I know a lot of for instance women who feel uncomfortable walking into like a comic book shop or any place with any sort of nerddom or any place that feels male dominated because
Mhm.
it feels like they're not welcome.
Mhm.
Because they are the other, because they are different,
Mhm.
and depending on how you are expressing, these
Mhm.
valid opinions, because I have a ton of critiques myself on
Mhm.
all of these films.
Mhm.
That's not the point. It's how you're slamming people in the face with it that makes it gatekeeping.
Okay. And no, I can agree with that. If you're like telling people like, no, this movie sucks, or you're not a Star Wars fan if you like these movies, right? Is bad. It's gatekeeping. I've never done that. I've never told anybody that they can't like the movies. I've never gotten mad at anybody for liking the movies, right? I think that they're enjoyable to watch. Even though while I'm watching them, I'm just like, oh my God, this is so painful sometimes, right? With some of the plot holes and the devices. Um uh, but I
I
feel
took two
like
girlfriends of mine uh, to see Suicide Squad when it came
Mhm,
out, and as soon as the movie ended, and this is like their first, I don't know, superhero esque thing. They're like, "Oh, I love Harley Quinn. I loved that movie. It was so fun." And I'm
mhm.
like, "I'm happy you guys enjoyed it. I gotta go." I mean, I'm happy that they wanted to join in, but and I know that you've never said you're not a fan, and if you dislike this or
Mhm.
anything like that, but in I'm specifically talking to the video that you made where it seemed
Yes.
like what you were saying was
No,
that
no, no. That is so my to be clear about that response, just if there was any miscommunication about that or any from my end, if I said it wrong, I believe that the satirical arguments that he was making as that character were actual valid arguments that people who don't like the sequels make. So he's not saying that gatekeeping is just like, oh, like if you're not a fan, you're not a fan if you like the sequels. I think that the arguments that he's satirizing or making fun of or mocking are valid arguments that people could make up why they don't like the sequels. Some of them are ridiculous, and some of them I don't agree with. I believe I remember everything he said. I know he said the whole Mayor Ray Sue was like one of the biggest things that I talk about. And he's like, oh, we're expected to believe that she can blah 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 blah, and I'm just like, yes, like that to me is ridiculous that she can do those things. You know what I mean? So to me, it seems like he's gatekeeping. He's gatekeeping satirically people who criticize the movies for those reasons and don't like either the character development, the writing, or the movie in general because of those reasons. And from what I've seen, people calling me toxic, whatever, despite the fact that I've never been, I wouldn't say not toxic, especially when I argue against conservatives. I've always been very aggressive or passive aggressive or sarcastic. I've always been this way. That attitude is not going to change against the Star Wars fandom. So it's not me being inherently toxic. It's me talking how I talk to people. But in no way have I told somebody you can't be a fan of this, or you shouldn't like this, or you're wrong for liking this. I've brought up my points about how I feel plot points or character development, specifically regarding Rey, is bad. And people have made the opposite points, saying why they don't agree with that. Why am I more toxic or more of a gatekeeper than they are when they're telling me I'm wrong? And in response, I'm telling them they're wrong. You know what I mean? If anything, I've seen a lot of toxicity from the I'm going to call them the primarily sequel fans, right? From the people who defend the sequels primarily. I've seen more toxicity from them than anybody else. And this is being a lifetime fan of Star Wars. Even people who shit on the sequels were not, on the prequels were not this toxic about it in my circles. You know what I mean? Then the people who actually defend the sequels are way more toxic. Parker, Kev, like those people to me have been incredibly toxic and gatekeepers. So,
okay. And, so in my question is in what context is what they are doing gatekeeping, if you don't mind, because I've seen this come up in my comments recently, and if to be honest, it feels disingenuous to me. Not what you are saying, but just the context that I typically hear and typically see these in, because and obviously, if we're talking about TikTok, the algorithm shows you what you interact with. If I see, I have a friend who cosplays as Rey, and there are people that would follow her to every post that she makes, whether it's about Rey or not, and say, you know, Rey's a Mary Sue, I hate her, and all this, and just going on and on.
Those people are idiots. Those people are idiots, and they're the gatekeepers for sure, and I believe that they exist, but I'm not one of them. You know what I mean? Those like that is toxic. That's toxic. Telling just because I cosplayed as Rey's Rey's not like it has nothing to do with her cosplaying. You can say your cosplay sucks, right? That can be an opinion that is valid to what she's doing. But coming and saying, "Oh, Rey's Mary Sue, fuck you," right, and fuck Rey is like that's toxic as hell. That's gatekeeping for sure. But it's not anything that I've ever done. And if you believe you asked me like what gatekeeping has been on my side, people telling me that why can't you just let people like the sequels? They're gatekeeping me from disliking them or from making arguments against them or criticizing them in any way. When in fact, I've never stopped anybody from liking this. You can like the sequels. Sure. It's fine if you like them. But telling me that why can't you just let people like them, like basically shoehorning me into a position where I shouldn't be critical is gatekeeping. Telling me that my arguments are based in misogyny is gatekeeping, because if I don't like the sequels or I don't like Rey or I can't compare her feats to Luke's or Anakin's, my argument and me must be misogynistic is gatekeeping. It's you're saying that the only way I cannot like the sequels, I mean, sorry, not sorry, the only way I can dislike the sequels is if I'm a misogynist is gatekeeping. You're making it less accessible to me being able to critique something that I actually do enjoy, that I'm a fan of. That's gatekeeping. And you can go to any one of my posts and see a lot of that on my posts.
Okay, and I do understand that in that like again, and I think we're both in the same boat because it's something that I would never do myself, and is not allow someone to have their own opinion or whatever. Um, that being said, can we at least acknowledge that a lot of what we're seeing is a reaction to, so let me throw a scenario at you, because the specifically the women in our community do get a lot of really nasty and really sexist and really like disgusting comments all of the time. Now, this is a very small minority that's following all of them and trying to do that. That's entirely possible. And I would never say anyone who dislikes Ray is a misogynist just because they dislike Ray. That's never going to be my argument. But if someone makes a post about like, hey, I noticed this thing and I really like Ray, and then a bunch of these people jump on her and like say all this garbage, and then you come in and you're like, Ray's a bad character for this, and this reason. How do we know the difference? How do we know you're not you sound if you sound exactly like the people attacking them, then the natural assumption is going to be that you're attacking them. And so that's where this comes from. And I wish we could all kind of get on the same page with this, because like myself personally, like I have a ton of criticism and I start to like bring it out, but the people that get drawn to it are those garbage people, and I'm like, I don't want you here. So that's why I'll temper my content specifically, but I mean, does that make sense to you?
Yes, no, I agree. But I think that a lot of people are not intelligent. I'm of the belief that a lot of people are either averagely intelligent or below intelligent, and there are a lot of really, really stupid people uh, on my page in here right now on my stream. And they take things out of context. They literally will gloss over anything that somebody says because they have a preconceived notion of bias that they believe, and they want to project their feelings onto other people. So when people watch my video and the guy was like, oh, Mayor Ray Sue thing, he's being mocking. But when I make an argument against that and say, well, I think Ray is Mary Sue because that is the argument that was being made, then gatekeeping. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't just come out on somebody's post saying, this is why I think Ray's a good character, which I've seen those posts, like, like Ray's a good character because XYZ, and be like, no, well, actually, she sucks and she's a Mary Sue because blah, 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 blah. No, like, the guy was making fun of people who criticized the sequels, although I get that he thought that he was doing it, I'm talking about Moose, he was doing it satirically. But again, I think against people who actually have valid arguments. So I responded with, well, no, people dislike the sequels because they suck, right? But he's saying that it seems as if you can only dislike the sequels, and maybe I'm stretching here, maybe I'm reaching here, that a lot of people who dislike the sequels are these toxic people and not people who are just critical of the writing or the movies or the characters. That was what my response was tailored towards, not just like, oh, you think Ray is not a Mary Sue? Well, I'm going to tell you why she is. You know what I mean? It's more so like, no, people dislike it because, and that's one of the reasons why, because she is a Mary Sue. And then I gave a couple of examples, but there's not much you can do in 60 seconds, so not exactly gatekeeping. So, and then when you say like, how do you decide or infer who's gatekeeping and who's not? I think it's fairly obvious who's gatekeeping and who's not. It's not just saying that I'm critical of the sequels or the characters because of this reason, but actually giving reasons for it. But you have a large group of people who think that we are simply for us, like this guy in my chat right now. Blackbird is only saying these people are idiots because he's being featured with a larger audience, so he's trying to make himself look good. This is a toxic fan. Grandmaster Nick. That's a toxic fan, right? So like, say he has no reason to he has no factual evidence to support that. I'm saying that for that reason. And for the record, I have hundreds of thousands of followers on TikTok, and I've been saying this stuff. So what larger audience? I have 44 people. Oh, excuse me. Last I checked, 36 people watching me now. So what is this guy talking about? Do you see what I mean? How it's projected that I'm gatekeeping when it's not. Because I feel like a lot of the people, or anytime somebody disagrees with anything about this fandom or the sequels in particular, they must be gatekeepers because it makes their argument seem more valid from a emotional standpoint. Because if I can be brought down, it's a straw man also, by the way. Because if you can bring me down as a gatekeeper, you have already brought down my argument that I'm going to make because you've already established me as a gatekeeper, which is a fallacy. It's an attack on character, a fallacy.
Yeah, I mean it's so again I believe it's partially an attack on character, but it's still it's almost and I know it's nowhere near as big of a topic or as important of the topic, but it's almost reminiscent of racism to me,
Mm-hmm.
where um uh someone could be throwing slurs at me and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, that guy's racist. And then, if the next person is like, well, I mean, black people are more likely to do this. Maybe that person isn't racist, but you're like, you sound like them. And it just means that these people, they blend in and become the other. And so that's one of the main reasons I said that at the beginning of this talk, because that's how these things kind of go, is
Yeah, no,
everyone
no, for
inside just
sure.
kind of blends in and it becomes this white noise. And whenever something like that, and even if technically, if what you said technically wasn't toxic, um, I and by the way, I've followed your content for a long time. I've been following you
Mhm.
since like June.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
You do jump in with an antagonistic tone,
Yes, because I'm
and that's
antagonistic
okay.
against racism. Yeah, and Trump supporters. Yes, I am purposefully antagonistic to them. I don't
so
want to have a discussion with them. I want their ideology to stop existing.
so that's why all I'm saying is coming in, coming like a wrecking ball, as well as things that empower kind of that side of the community. Excuse me.
Shut up, cat.
But okay. I think we had a. I enjoyed it. I mean, even though we didn't come to specific conclusions, I did enjoy the talk and understand, because you're coming at this from a different perspective than actually a lot of the people that I have had these discussions with. So
Yeah,
it's
and
definitely good.
if you what if you don't mind, what kind of people, what kind of direction did they go in when it comes to stuff like this?
So the people's arguments that I see every day, every single day, is how do I explain it? So your argument, it was more tied to, like, they just couldn't see the factors that led up to any ability or any feat or anything like that. Like, so 90% of the people that I've spoken to, like, on this topic, for instance, Ray bypassing the compressor where we started, they did not notice that she had mechanical skills. They did not notice that the plot was showing us that she understands these parts. They didn't notice that the compressor was referred to prior in the movie,
Mhm,
right? And
mhm,
so it is cool that you actually watched the movie, because, like I said, 90% of my discussions on it
mhm.
with people, they don't, and they miss
Yeah.
very obvious things that are in the films, and you're like,
Mhm.
oh my goodness. So that's where we're
Yeah.
coming at this
Okay.
from. But yeah,
Yeah, no, the thing is I actually watched the movies and I do notice the things that even people said and still can disagree or come up with arguments against them because of other plot points that I feel counteract that and stuff like that. And I feel like this stuff is it's fun. It's fun to discuss. I may come off as a little aggressive sometimes, but I do enjoy these nerd conversations. These are like the little debates I used to have, like Superman versus Goku, and it gets heated. It gets heated, you know what I mean?
Well, but I was also being antagonistic to you intentionally to goad you into being willing to do this. So, not in the same
that's
level,
fine.
But
if you were trying to be antagonistic, dude, then I don't want to see you being nice because you trying to be antagonistic still comes off as nice. That's why I still think you're a nice dude because you trying to be antagonistic is still like comes off as being pretty kind. So,
damn it, work on that.
I started responding. I'm like, yo, I think this guy's he seems a cool dude. I'll definitely have a discussion with him. I'll have a debate. We can talk about the points. It's perfectly fine with me. And dude, from one nerd to another, man, like I enjoy this stuff. I really do. Whether it's debating about it, whether we can get heated about it or not, or talk calm, it doesn't matter what our tone is. We're passionate about it, right? You're passionate about Star Wars. I'm passionate about Star Wars. And I think this stuff is fun. I think we should have people to challenge us, just so we're light side, dark side, right? On both sides, I think it's okay to have these discussions with people. And I think that we should all band together and not just put people in the categories of people who criticize the sequels and people who like the sequels or defend the sequels. Which I feel we should be able to do, but we should still all see each other as fans of Star Wars and still be able to go against the people who are completely toxic about prequels, original trilogy, or the sequels, which I'm fine doing. You just go back in my videos, and when I made a thing about the video clip with Battlefront, and I said there's 4 Skywalkers in this scene. It was Vader, Anakin, Luke, and Rey. And people were like, there's only 3 Skywalkers because Rey's not a Skywalker. I defended that. So I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not one or the other. Yeah, but I'm totally against that type of toxic fandom, you know? So I think we should band together in that point, but still be able to kind of have these debates as well, which I'm perfectly fine with. And I don't hold any hostility, but not towards you in general, but for some other people who I see making bad faith arguments, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to sweep in like Luke against the Empire and start ending these talking points, man. Or debating them anyway. People, whether they agree or not, is up to them. So it's all up for discussion, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So, and what I'm going to do is, I'll take this video, I'll edit out, like going to the bathroom and stuff like that. Obviously not going to edit any of your points. I'll tag you when I post it. I'm just going to pull the things out, leave it up here on YouTube, and I guess we can let people decide where they are. But I don't know. So it's a good conversation. Do you want to go ahead and plug your stuff where people can find you?
Blackbird 451 on TikTok if you want to follow me there, and Blackbird _ 451 on Twitch. I mostly have been streaming video games. I've been streaming World War Z recently with my boy Corrupt24. You can follow him as well if you like to. You can follow me at IG as well, Blackbird _ 451. But yeah, definitely open up for discussion. If anybody wants to have any more discussions like this, I'm cool with that as well. We can argue other points. We can have discussions where we agree with things. I'm cool with that too. But yeah, Blackbird 451 on TikTok, Blackbird _ 451 on Twitch is mostly where I'm at. I haven't posted on Instagram in a while, but that's where you can find me. Choco, you want to take it away?
Yeah. I'm Darth Choco on TikTok. That's primarily where I post. But I also have my YouTube channel that I'm really trying to ramp up. It's youtube.com/DarthChocolate. And I mostly talk Star Wars, but I'm going to branch out and jump into other nerd fandoms because the algorithm is taking a dump on Star Wars TikTok, but also I have way more I need to share. And then some gaming, but it'll mostly be Star Wars related. But yeah, that's where you can find me. And again, thank you for the discussion. I'll let you know when I'm posting this. And okay. Yeah, may the force be with you. Sorry for too, my friend. Jump off, but my wife is calling me. So
no, do your thing. Yeah, you don't want to get killed. So take care.
All right, man.
Have a good one.
May the force be with you.